We have some fantastic military relationships with the Philippines.
This is Washington, D.C., July 2025. On the surface, it looked like just another day in politics. Two statesmen meeting for a courtesy call, cameras flashing, small talk filling the air. Standing side by side, U.S. President Donald Trump and Philippine President Bongbong Marcos stepped up to the podium. Then came the bombshell.
War and peace. They're a very important nation militarily. We're going to end up in a few months, we'll have more ammunition than any country has ever had. Any country has ever had.
At first glance, it sounded like classic Trump chest thumping. Big promises, big words, big headlines. But this time, it wasn't just political theater. It was strategic signaling. In a single moment, what began as routine diplomacy detonated into headlines across the Pacific. Because this announcement didn't come in a vacuum, it landed in the middle of rising tensions in Asia.
The threat China poses is real, and it could be imminent.
Chinese warships shadowing Philippine vessels, missiles rehearsed over Taiwan, Chinese invasion preparations and joint drills pushing closer to flashpoints. Suddenly, the Philippines, long seen as a junior partner in the region, was being tapped to house a massive arms manufacturing hub. Not just any factory, but one that could redefine military supply chains, boost the local economy, and potentially shift the balance of power in the region. But is this a smart step towards self-reliance, or a dangerous move that could pull the Philippines deeper into someone else's war? So let's break it down. If the Philippines becomes a top-tier ammunition producer, who wins? Who loses? And is this really the future to be ready for? Since Russia's invasion of Ukraine in 2022, more than 10 million artillery shells have been fired across the battlefields of Eastern Europe. Every impact crater tells the same brutal truth. Wars don't just cost lives, they devour logistics. It's not the tanks or the jets that run out first. It's the shells, the bullets, the fuel, and right now, the West is struggling to keep up. The United States, along with NATO and its allies, is pouring weapons into Ukraine. But here's the problem. They're burning through ammo faster than they can make it. Pentagon officials admitted openly. The U.S. currently produces about 40,000 artillery shells per month. Sounds like a lot, until you realize that Ukraine can fire that much in just a week. Factories in Europe and the U.S. are running overtime, stockpiles are thinning, and every round shipped to Kiev is one less in storage for the next fight. Meanwhile, across the Pacific, China's been watching and preparing. For over a decade, Beijing has stockpiled everything from ballistic missiles and drone swarms to artillery shells and raw materials. They've built massive plants, created shadow supply chains, and mapped out how long they can fight and outlast their rivals. Because in any future war, whether over Taiwan, the South China Sea, or elsewhere, the side that runs out first loses, and China has no intention of folding early. That's why the U.S. is changing tactics. It's no longer enough to produce at home. They need partners, factories abroad, supply lines that stretch beyond a single continent. New plants are already being set up in South Korea, Australia, and Poland. And now, eyes are on the Philippines. This isn't about politics anymore. It's not just another handshake or press conference headline. This is about building an arsenal that doesn't sleep, about creating a Southeast Asian node in the global defense supply chain, one that can churn out shells, missiles, and deterrents day in, day out. And that's why Trump's so-called very big ammunition plant suddenly looks a lot less like campaign noise and a whole lot more like a strategic necessity. So why the Philippines? Why not keep the factory in the US? Or set it up in allied countries like Japan or Australia? Simple. The Philippines offers three things that Washington can't ignore: location, labor, and leverage. First, geography. The Philippines is sitting on a military goldmine, strategically positioned in the first island chain. It's close to Taiwan, but just far enough from mainland China. In a conflict scenario, any military supply hub within this arc, Subic, Clark, Cagayan, becomes a forward logistics base for rapid resupply and rearmament. It shortens response times, cuts transport costs, and puts the U.S. supply chain right at China's doorstep. Second, labor and infrastructure. The Philippines has a rising pool of skilled labor, especially in electronics, precision manufacturing, and logistics. These aren't just call centers and assembly lines anymore. This is a workforce that's young, tech-savvy, and battle-tested in high-stakes industries. Combine that with its dozens of ecozones and industrial parks, and you've got a workforce that's ready and willing. Add to that strong U.S. business ties and an English-speaking population, and it becomes the perfect match for a U.S.-led military-industrial project. Legal frameworks are improving, trade ties are solid, and politically, Philippine President Marcos Jr. has shown he's willing to lean hard into defense cooperation with Washington. All this makes the Philippines not just a convenient partner, but a strategic launchpad for a U.S.-led military-industrial footprint in Southeast Asia. Third, political leverage. Let's be real, this isn't just about bullets and boxes. A U.S. ammunition plant is also strategic leverage. It deepens defense ties, it pulls the Philippines deeper into the U.S. orbit, and it sends a crystal clear message to Beijing: we're not just allies on paper, we're building war readiness together. For the Philippines, this is more than just a factory. It's a seat at the big table, in both regional security and industrial relevance. But with power comes attention, and not all of it is friendly. China is watching closely. A U.S.-backed ammunition plant on Philippine soil doesn't just raise eyebrows in Beijing, it triggers alarms, and for good reason. For decades, China has relied on a slow but steady strategy, building artificial islands, expanding its maritime presence, and intimidating its neighbors one fishing boat or Coast Guard ship at a time.
Threatening the Philippine Navy officer with an axe.
But a munitions factory? That's a game changer. It shifts the Philippines from a passive buffer zone into an active defense hub. If war breaks out over Taiwan, this plant could be producing the very bullets, shells, and rockets used in the first weeks of conflict. In Chinese military doctrine, logistics hubs and armament centers are considered priority targets. Think about it. Would China allow a facility like that to operate untouched in a shooting war? Probably not. Suddenly, areas like Subic, Clark, or Bataan don't just become assets. They become targets and vulnerabilities. You don't build a gun factory in a contested zone without expecting a gunfight. And yet, the deterrence value may outweigh the risk. It forces China to think twice, because now any act of aggression risks igniting a broader American and Filipino response, backed by industry, not just ideology. But just because the factory may deter some, doesn't mean it won't inflame others. President Bongbong Marcos has positioned himself as a pragmatic leader, looking to modernize the armed forces of the Philippines, AFP, and strengthen strategic ties with allies like the US, Japan, and even India. In his eyes, the ammunition plant is a win-win. Create jobs, attract foreign investment, upgrade defense capabilities, and send a message to regional bullies. To Marcos, this is economic and military modernization, not militarization. Vice President of the Philippines, Sara Duterte, who has long taken a more China-friendly stance, reportedly opposes deeper U.S. military entrenchment. Her allies in Congress and in Davao are expected to challenge the project under the guise of protecting Philippine sovereignty. Critics claim the plant could drag the country deeper into a conflict not of its choosing and turn local communities into targets. NGOs and legal experts are already raising questions. Who owns the land? What are the terms of the deal? Is it a public-private partnership? Will U.S. contractors be protected by immunity? The Philippines has a long, painful memory of foreign military use, from the Subic Naval Base era to the toxic legacy of Clark. And the fear is, are we repeating history or finally rewriting it? But here's the twist. Public opinion is shifting. With Chinese aggression rising in the West Philippine Sea, many Filipinos now favor stronger U.S. ties. On the verge of possibly hosting one of Southeast Asia's largest ammunition factories, with direct ties to America's military-industrial machine. This isn't just about manufacturing bullets or artillery shells. It's about laying down the industrial backbone of national defense. With an indigenous supply line, the Philippines can finally reduce dependence on foreign suppliers, especially in moments of crisis, when waiting on allies might take too long. From joint patrols with Australia and Japan to deterring blockades in the West Philippine Sea, this ammunition plant could become a symbol of readiness. We're talking thousands of jobs in logistics, engineering, manufacturing, and R&D. Spin-off industries could thrive. Steel, chemical processing, transport, even education through technical training partnerships. But let's not get carried away. Any deal of this scale must be transparent and accountable. The plant must be Filipino-owned or co-managed. It must benefit local communities, and it must never become a pawn in foreign power games. The truth is, sovereignty isn't just defended with diplomacy or deterrence. And if done right, this ammunition plant could be more than a military asset. It could be a statement that the Philippines will never again be caught unprepared. So we ask you, what do you think? Is this factory a step forward or a step into someone else's shadow? Comment your thoughts below, share this video, and subscribe for more grounded updates on the future of Philippine defense.